listener. Welcome to the Deep Share Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Rouse, and for the last couple of decades, I've slowly been opening my eyes to a very different world than the one I grew up hearing about. And the more conversations I have with interesting people, the more mystifying this world becomes. So without further ado, let's get deep.
We've got science to celebrate! Demons bliss now! After punch, baby, come on!
There is rebellion in the wind. It will be crushed.
Everything I've said is true, it's real.
Dinosaur fossils? God put those here to test our faith.
A damn lie, I saw them with my own eye!
Did IQs just drop sharply while I was away?
We did illusions, man! None of it is true!
I'm not insane!
This is mass madness, you maniacs! In God's name, you people are the real thing! We are the illusion!
So this is the Deep Share, down the Deep Share, or down the Deep Rabbit Share, something kind of swapcast.
Down the deep hole.
Down the deep hole.
Let's just be plain about it, right?
We were just talking about eating ass before we started recording. So.
Jesus Christ.
The topics that need to be discussed, you know?
Yeah, it's a cultural phenomenon. The ladies love it.
You know, they're trying to make guys like other guys and be more feminine and have girls be more masculine and have everyone be androgynous, gray.
Androgynous, yeah.
Yeah,
We were
androgynous,
just talking
that's the
about
word.
that. We were just discussing that conspiracy right before we started recording.
Yeah.
Oh,
That
no
we
shit,
that's
yeah.
what the whole Cardi B eat my ass like a cupcake phenomenon is. It's to desensitize dudes to eating other dudes' asses. But we are digressing early on the down the
Listen, just to start everybody off, we're going to talk about deep ass play.
Talk about predictive programming. We're
Fuck
getting
yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
you-
that's what we were thinking about, right?
You want to hit us with an intro so we can get into the podcast.
That was the intro, Tyler. Little
Yeah.
My
Dun,
bad.
dun, dun. You guys got a cool intro you throw on?
We do a similar.
It's pre-recorded.
Yeah, okay, cool. I was just wondering because I'll tell you later.
Mm.
Oh, I'm having like live issues.
Take it from here. What's going on, rabbit holers? It's your boy Tyler Saint, joined as always by my co-host Mitch Vuk.
He's the co-host.
Yeah, it's the other way around. But today we are swap casting with is it Andy?
Andy from the Deep Share.
Andy from
That's
the Deep.
right. What's going on, everybody?
How you doing, man?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Good to meet you guys.
Yeah, it's finally good to put a face to the words we exchange online, you know?
Yeah, in our joint efforts.
Yes. He's part of our giant Twitter group message called the Joint Authority on Conspiracies Association, also known as the Jackasses. We haven't had a Jackass show in a while, but we're going to get a big group show here going soon.
Yeah, we'll get
Hell
it back.
yeah. I love me a big group, discussion, little round table
orgy.
action.
The orgy porgy.
Mhm. An orgy of philosophy.
Right, exactly.
So we wanted to get into predictive programming tonight,
yeah,
stuff like that.
to start us off at least for sure. We're probably
Yeah.
going to sidetrack here once or twice, but
That's always the best way to go. We just pick a topic that we know we can probably riff on, and then who knows where we'll go into the next dimension, hopefully.
might need some shrooms for that, but
Yeah.
But nonetheless, man, so the way we usually start our podcasts off is we ask our guests, even though this is a swap cast, we ask
sure.
who we're podcasting with, what first sent you down the rabbit hole?
yeah, what got you into this alternative media community?
Santa Claus.
Yeah, that's a good
I
answer.
love it, dude.
But it didn't get me into this community. It got me eventually just down
Question.
into depression because there was no community back then. I'm not
That's the
talking about when I was
first big wow.
6, but that is the first one. That's the first loose suck, is it
Right.
not? It's the
Mhm.
first energy exchange that we really experienced as children, where we're built up and built up and built up and the rug's pulled out from under us. And, I had the same experience a lot of kids had. It was just this, okay. And the world just looks a little different at that point and it goes away. Right.
But then when I got older and I got into psychedelics and everything, and I learned about a lot of the deeper myths about Santa Claus, I'm like, and that's what kind of sent me down the rabbit hole and psychedelics in general and stuff like that. But I said Santa Claus on purpose because that really is the first one, the first big thing that happens. And I feel like now I could possibly give my kid more of a story when I pull the rug out. There'll be a nice soft cushion underneath them. Maybe not at that age with all the details. Maybe I'll, I don't know.
Wait till he's like maybe 10 or something. So
This is initiation, son.
So if I'm not mistaken, Mitch, wasn't that your first rabbit hole?
Yeah, my brother.
Nice synchronicity.
Right. My brother told me Santa Claus is fake when I was like 6 years old, and the next day I went to school and told everybody. Yeah, my dad had parents calling him like, your son ruined it. What's he doing? So I've been trying to spread the truth from a very, very young age.
That's amazing. That's awesome. How did you get into it, Tyler?
I was a little bit of a late bloomer. I've always been buddies with Mitch. We grew up in the same hometown, as a lot of our listeners know, but it was really, I think it was Mitch preaching that jet fuel can't melt steel beams whenever we were in like 8th grade, man.
Right.
And I was like, fuck you, man. That was a national tragedy. Like, how dare you?
Getting so bent out of shape.
I'm just trying to get people to question the mainstream.
And then I saw a little documentary called Zeitgeist.
Mm-hmm.
And that opened up 2 avenues for me. And I mean, it just became like an addiction to research these alternative topics and, conspiracies, quote unquote. It just opened up a big door, and now we're down the rabbit hole, I guess.
Yeah, now everything floods in now.
Yeah, now I don't believe anything I hear. I have to like, fucking check who's funding it. It's like a mental illness almost.
But it's messed up.
Yeah, I mean,
that kind of gets into predictive programming, because guys like us, we can watch a movie or watch television, the little bit of television that I actually watch. I love Jeopardy, big Jeopardy guy. But
I have a bunch of friends that are obsessed.
Right. But you can see the propaganda in the programming that they're trying to underlie in the bigger message, like one big example is this new Disney Plus series, Loki. A lot of people were Marvel fans, and I know me and you talked about this a little bit, but it is jammed packed with conspiracies. Like the first episode, they show Loki as DB Cooper. Like right. he's the guy on the plane, he jumps out, and then the Bifrost teleports him back to Asgard, and that's the DB Cooper story, I
got a kick out of that.
Yeah, it was kind of cool, but they're kind of poking the bear of the conspiracy community a little bit. Like the Philadelphia experiment. I'm sorry if no one's seen Loki. I don't mean to spoil anything.
I actually haven't.
Well,
I plan on watching.
Spoiler alert right here. I'm going to spoil some stuff. But the Philadelphia experiment's in there. There's this void where things go, and the USS, what was it called? The ship that was used in the Philadelphia experiment.
The Eldridge.
Eldridge, exactly. It drops into this void, and it's like, oh my God, they teleported, and that it's just another callback to a conspiracy.
Yeah.
And the main storyline has to do with these timelines. There's an agency called the Time Variance Authority, which is in charge of protecting the sacred timeline. And that's a whole thing in itself. And Loki, his variant event where they pluck him out of the timeline and say, hey, you didn't do what you're supposed to do, now we have to reset you. It actually happened in 2012. And that goes back into like the CERN Hadron Collider finding the Higgs boson in 2012, end of the Mayan calendar. A lot of people think 2012 was the start of something crazy, that's where a lot of people think the Mandela effect started. We branched into a bunch of different timelines, and people remembering things from their old timelines. But the one thing that really got me from Loki is he describes the leaders of the TVA as 3 space lizards. And it's like, oh my God.
They just put it right there. They're
Right.
just doing, and it's funny too, not to like change it. We'll go back to Loki, but
No,
did you guys see that show a couple years back? It had it had one of the best Daily Show correspondents on it. I can't remember his name, but it was called People of Earth. And it was about these people in a support group for their abduction stories that no one would believe. And they really were abducted. And they literally have the Greys, the Nordics, and the reptilians like behind the scenes the whole time. And it's hilarious, or it was. But I wonder if I watched it now, if I would just be angry.
Right.
You know,
They're shoving it in your face. They really are.
they really are. But what are they shoving in our face? That's the thing. It's like a lot of times people run with some of this stuff, and I don't necessarily agree all the time with certain examples. You know, sometimes you'll see a bunch of Instagram posts and a bunch of red markers circling parts of things, and I'm like,
People
so
do have
you're
a tendency to go
you're
off
reaching there and then linking that reach to a bunch of very, very intense things. You know what I mean? So it's like, we got to be really careful. And Loki, I think, is a good example of something that's really on the nose. As soon as you get into symbolism, if you watch that show, you're like, oh my God.
Exactly. That little miss minutes, it's basically an AI thing that it was part of the TVA. And there's just so much stuff like Project Looking Glass, how you can view the future. That's laid out all right there. It just goes back and forth. I actually saw a lot of similarities to the Matrix when I watched Loki, because Loki's called the Variant, just like Neo is called the One. And
he's the glitch in the code.
Right. And there's a character called Mobius and Morpheus. You know, there's just so many similarities. I'm like, wow, they just copied the Matrix, but it's okay.
Well, the Matrix is just the hero's journey anyway.
Yeah.
Which most things
with a real sinister, dark undertone, you know, and not heroics. Like, you know, Star Wars ends heroically, the classic example of your hero's journey, but the Matrix does not, you know. I remember watching that as like a young man and going, oh wow, that was awesome, and then watching it like a little bit later, maybe after psychedelics, and going, oh man, oh, so the revolution was part of the agenda too.
Right. That was a sign.
That's the most important thing to me that reflects our reality, is that they give us the good things too. Like my psychedelics, I'm not to sidetrack.
No, please.
I've been going down this weird path since I started the podcast. I'm like, even going into it, I'm like, I'm going to start talking about how psychedelics are not evil and satanic, because this needs to be fixed. Because I don't care how involved the government was with LSD, I know that experience just allows something to happen in you. You know, like they didn't pre-program that, like Stropharia cubensis mushrooms millions of years ago. No. But what I'm coming to now is that the reason why they like psychedelics, the big bad they, is because it's not meditation. Now, sure, we go off and, you know, a lot of hippies took off to India and everything, but I would say the majority of people trying psychedelics are just trying psychedelics. Maybe we can change that over time, and maybe it is changing. But I would say that it's just to put something in the way of something natural. You know what I mean? I know we kind of branched off there, but
no, it's fine.
Our whole podcast is a sidetrack, man. You're all good.
Yeah, man.
A lot of people use psychedelics as like a party drug, and that is not what they're meant for. But I think they're just like a tool that they can be used in either way. They can be evil if you're using them that way, like MK Ultra mind control shit.
It makes you suggestible to a lot of different ideas, like open to suggestion, which in and of itself is useful. But also, like you both are saying, I think it's a tool to enlightenment.
For sure.
Could be. But what I've come to recently is I wonder if taking the express elevator is the same as putting in the work, you know. And I never got that. I was always like, why climb up the mountain when you can take the jetpack, you know? But it's just like anything else. You put the work in or you don't put the work in. There's two very different feelings attached to it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I
You
think
got to
it's,
experience the lows to feel them highs, you know.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
not 15 minutes to a half hour of a partial bad trip before you bounce back and think you figured it all out. That's the difference between experiencing life and putting in the work.
Yeah, psychedelics are a great sorry, buddy. Yeah. The psychedelics are like a good verification tool almost for if you're already doing that work, or if you start to do that work because of psychedelics. It can be a kind of like a pulling out the map, perhaps every once in a while, is kind of like doing a light trip, maybe not DMT or anything, but you know.
Yeah, never done DMT. I don't know if I am ever going to be ready for that, but
I would love to.
He's been asking about DMT since we were in like high school. I'm like, bro, you are not ready for that.
Anywhere, man.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like when I was trying to get it for a long time, I wouldn't even know who to ask about who to ask, you know.
You're a chemist in all reality. I mean,
Yeah, pretty much, or someone that at least can deal with basic chemistry in an educated way. My friend was willing to do it.
Making fucking DMT.
Yeah.
Give it a try, right? What's the worst that could happen?
And wind up in jail.
You just never come back. That's all.
Yeah, who knows? But we've definitely got off track anyway. Like we wanted to do some predictive programming stuff, and I know that there's plenty of fun examples to talk about. Even though, like, I'm sure this stuff has come up on plenty of podcasts before, but I don't know, man. I haven't had a chance to really get into it with anybody, so I like the opportunity to talk about stuff like that, you know. Did you guys ever see the hell was that Netflix show, Robots, or Love, Death and Robots? Did you ever give that a chance?
Nope.
So it was pretty interesting. It was like, you know, a collaboration of a bunch of different really creative artists getting together, and so it's like different animation styles, claymation, this and that, different interesting sci-fi ideas into short stories. There was one that was the creepiest predictive programming type stuff I've ever seen, where these two people have this fridge and they open up the freezer, and in the freezer there's like cavemen rummaging around in the ice, and they're like, what? So they close it and they open it again immediately, and there's like medieval castles and horses and shit like that, and then they just like shrug and they close it and they go out for the day or whatever. Then they come back at the very end of the night and it's the 80s basically. It's like already in their freezer, it's like electronic everything, and then they close it and go to sleep, and they wake up in the morning, and I'm abbreviating it, but it is so advanced that everything looks like light travel because everything's just so fast, and eventually it speeds up and speeds up and speeds up until it becomes this one like vibrating mass of light, and then just boop, and it's gone. And they shrug again and close the freezer and walk away. And then they come back and they open it up, and there's cavemen there again, different cavemen this time. And I don't know, I have yet to wrap my mind around it, but there's a lot there for sure. What do you guys take from that?
It's a condensed history of the universe, like, or life, I guess. You start with non-advanced cavemen, and then go to medieval times, and then the current day, and then the future. And then, like you said, eventually it culminates into something that's just so energetic that it
is that God.
Either they ascend or fuck themselves up and have to reset or something. That's what I'm getting from it.
What I like is that it's cyclical, because it seems like everything in our world is cyclical.
Yes, that's kind of what I was.
You look up at the sky, it's cyclical. You look at, I mean, according to our community, things like Tartaria and previous civilizations, it's all cyclical. It's rise and fall and rise and fall and rise and fall. So that's super interesting. You said that that's called Love,
Death and Robots. And it's one of like 15 episodes, but they're all like 7 minutes long. I watched the first one. I was like, I'm going to watch this whole thing, because like I don't have to get locked into something for an hour or anything.
Right.
You know?
But short episodes, that would make quick work of that.
But yeah, I got the cyclical thing out of that, almost like to say, you're never getting out of this. It's all just happening over and over again. But also, like, you hear in modern times this technocratic, whatever we want to call these parasitic, people that are running things. They love to use collectivism as a tool against us because it's obviously naturally what we all are and what we want. So they use it. And in that, I know you didn't have the visual because you haven't seen it yet, but maybe I'll pull up an image or something, but it's all tech. That whole scene is just, it's an unbelievably technocratic future that, so it's more of that. This is inevitable. This is coming,
Right.
and I think that the singularity at the end speaks volumes because that's kind of what everybody suggests is what they're going to start uploading their consciousness or whatever and think they're going to live forever or something.
They might already be doing that.
Now, do you think that that's a psyop within that show? Because what it seems to me is that they're saying that the only way to reach like eternal oneness, like through like within all the consciousness on Earth or whatever the show's premise is it like, are they saying that that's the only way to achieve that is through
Technology.
the technocracy?
I mean, so it's only a 10-minute short, and then the other stories are completely different, but within that 10-minute scope, I would say absolutely, because it's a wink, you see that tech now, and it's a wink to every other bit of tech. And it's really unfortunate too, because like, I'm sure you guys feel the same as me. I loved sci-fi and video games, and I've been looking forward
Still
to like
do.
immersive VR forever. But it's like that Neuralink shit. When we were teenagers, oh man, if only we could just do that. And where did
Yeah.
that come from? Was that my thought? Well, I don't know. Was it predictive programming? Did I have that thought prior to the Matrix though? I don't know.
Right. I mean, I'm still playing my N64. I don't want any future tech. I'm holding strong in my 90s, but I mean, I think
GoldenEye rules.
yeah, I think they are trying to unload the culmination of humans and robots. They're going to make us all androids eventually, whether it's going to be the chips in our arm that we can buy groceries just by scanning the barcodes, or if it's going to be something crazier like Neuralink, where
There's no private
your
thought.
brain is going to be tapped into the collective. I'm not sure how advanced it'll get and how soon, but that's definitely what they're pushing for.
Yeah, they definitely are. And it's weird that like in this community we go into so many different directions. Like I don't know how far out there you guys go, but it's like how fake are things out there. And it's like, in a video game, when you can play a video game, like I play Doom Eternal, and you can like literally go down into his like home base and play the old school Doom games. And it's
Right.
awesome. He's got like a killer gaming rig and everything, but it's perfect. It looks just like the original Doom from this realistic perspective, and it's like a lot of people get into the simulation theory and stuff. Where do you guys think of that? Where do you fall in that realm?
I would say I'm at about the 50% mark. It feels like this could very well be an extremely advanced simulation that we're living in.
Mhm.
And I don't have like a lot of like statistics or anything I can pull, but it just seems like that things in our world, like especially with like the cyclical nature of like the sky, the sun, the moon, etc., it just seems like everything lines up so perfectly that it couldn't possibly just be an anomaly. And I don't know if that means God or if that means simulation.
I'm definitely on the side of something created all this. I don't know if it's a higher dimensional being that set all this out for a purpose, or like going back to Neuralink, Elon Musk is the one that said, we're making simulations that are so in-depth and realistic that the chance of us being the base reality is like zero. He's saying there's no chance we're not in a simulation. And it's possible, but
I got a theory about it for sure. Oh, go ahead, Mitch.
No, let's hear it.
I want to hear it.
Yeah.
So this goes into like real psychedelic kind of talk, but I mean, I would say it can relate to a lot of Eastern mysticism and stuff like that. Most likely because it all comes from psychedelic experience anyway. But Matryoshkas, like the Russian dolls.
Yeah.
So that's like, I haven't never learned the history of Russian dolls, but I probably should because I'm fascinated by them. And I'm fascinated by the fractal idea, the idea of like the entire universe being some kind of fractal hologram situation, because it does feel that way often, where like reality is just copying itself over and over and over again. We see the elites redoing their magic, right? We see them reliving Saigon in Afghanistan and putting it on the news in the same frame.
Right.
It's like, well, what if? So my problem is I find a lot of those weird synchronicities in nature, in my own head, not from the elites. And it feels like it's all the same thing. Like when I tripped really hard, I felt like I was running a conspiracy on myself the whole time. And I had figured it out and I had found the culprit. There was this little puny inner child that was so afraid of everything that it had to build these walls around it and do, so it's like this inner, outer, the as above, so below, this range that Elon Musk, the smartest man in the world, is missing the fucking point on and putting a very human, modern human specifically, take on this very natural, very psychedelic thing going on. And so I can't prove that, but I've fucking witnessed it. I've felt it. I've seen it. Like everything is fractal and everything is it's just all copies of itself. We're all copies of itself, the original form.
What I like about psychedelics is that if you do in fact trip hard enough, you brought up fractals, and we're talking about simulation theory, that I've tripped hard enough to where everything breaks down into micro pixels.
Excuse me?
It's hard to bring back.
It's hard to
it's more of a sensory thing that you need to experience, but
yes,
in a way it all feels synthetic whenever you trip that hard, and the substances remove the veil of the reality that we live in. So I think that it very well could be a simulation.
I mean, but maybe it's a simulation that doesn't have to be this very human view of it. Like, what's his name? I'm forgetting his name for the second time in the history of this podcast. Nick Bostrom. He's like one of the biggest, people that talk about simulation theory. And he's rooted to this idea. It's future, bipedal people running a simulation on computers of some kind of ancestors trying to dig out the past. And I'm like, well, that's really curious. That I don't know. It to me, it seems like a total human cop-out. It's just the same way we do to aliens. We humanize the crap out of them, and we just assume that because we do things this way, everything in the universe must do things this way. You know what I mean? So when we humanize simulation theory, instead of suggesting that it's like simulation, I think is just a bad word for it. I haven't come up with a better word for it, but I think it is all real. I think there's no difference between, I think this is as real as it gets. I think outside of three-dimensional time and space, there's no such thing as experience. And maybe that is what samadhi is, and reaching that point of, maybe you've experienced this, Tyler, under psychedelics, that feeling of no time, no space, and just pure. You have to.
I was gonna say the third dimensional, like we're in time right now. We can only experience this moment, and when you get higher than that, you kind of see it all as one big picture instead of each frame.
Right.
But I was gonna talk about a little predictive programming and Men in Black. We're talking about simulations and aliens, and in the first Men in Black, it's all about the universe is on Orion's belt, and it's literally a marble hanging around a cat's neck, and there's an entire universe. And then they zoom out, and our universe is literally just a marble in some other alien's marble game. And it could be that, we might just be one little drop in an entire ocean of universes that we have no fucking idea what is going on in these other ones, you know?
Right. Well, we do. We would, right?
Do we though? Do we though?
Well, we would. No, we don't. No, we don't. But maybe in the same way as the Russian doll, it resembles this.
Yeah, there would be similarities.
Some core way.
All right, you brought up aliens. I want to know what your take on aliens are. Do you think they're from other planets or inner Earth or interdimensional? Like, what are aliens to you?
I'm having a
loaded question.
It's okay. I love it. It's one of my favorite questions because I don't have a good answer for it. And I used to love little gray aliens. And I used to get kind of freaked out at the idea of reptilians from Alpha Draconis and stuff like that. And all of Sitchin's work. I have all of his books right here. And
same.
I awesome, man. Because Sitchin's an amazing author and he gave us so much that you absolutely can't throw him away just because he came to the conclusion that they were talking about heaven as another place. I think the idea of symbolism is much newer to our modern culture than the idea of attaching aliens to religion instead of symbolism. You know what I mean? I think the symbolism scares us more than the idea that maybe all of our religions are talking about aliens, because aliens still means that there's someone smarter, more powerful out there that can come help us or destroy us, fear or helplessness. Both negative, horrible, psyop-y feeling things now from this perspective now. And under DMT and peyote and mescaline, all the acid and mushrooms over the years, man, I've run into some intelligence in there big time. And that's why I'm doing a series. I'm in the middle of doing a series right now where we're looking at that transcendental consciousness experience that you get from psychedelics, but from other angles too, you know, from the near-death experience, from paranormal angles, from alien abductions and things like that, because all those stories match up. They're all talking about something very similar. So I see it as some kind of field, but I think it can be as nuts and bolts as flying UFOs, crash UFOs, recovered material, technology. But I think it also can be as ethereal and non-physical and spiritual as some of it is reported. You know, I've said it before on this podcast that it's like a radio dial. A lot of times when you see UFOs, they just vanish off, like they just leave that frequency. Not that they disappear or speed off necessarily. It's a frequency change. It goes from physical to non-physical. So that's kind of my broad take on it right now. I like that.
Have you ever witnessed machine elves?
No, I have not really seen any machine elves on DMT. I've felt the presence.
Seen intelligences or felt intelligence.
Mostly on mushrooms.
Yeah.
So my deepest, craziest, darkest, most twisty, mysterious, movie-like Indiana Jones fucking crazy trips were mushrooms, not acid. Not everybody says acid's terrifying, and I'd rather do mushrooms. Mushrooms more connected to everything.
Yeah, it's more natural.
It's in your face truth, no matter what. Not that acid's not, but I don't know.
One thing I find interesting. So we're talking about, you know, psyops and predictive programming. I think that synthesized DMT, I have this theory, and I haven't actually talked about it on a podcast to this point, but the way it's synthesized in a lab and you can smoke it, not taking it through ayahuasca or anything like that. People will smoke it and they'll talk about seeing glistening, like 5-dimensional machinery and metal objects, and then the machine elves. You know, the same way that a lot of the predictive programming says that the only way to eternal oneness in the joint consciousness is through uploading your consciousness and involving technology. I think that, like, around the same time that acid was being put into the public and being experimented on by the CIA is when DMT popped up.
Yeah.
So
there was
I was kind of formulating a little bit of a theory about that like maybe it's also a psyop, if that makes sense, but
could be.
Yeah.
But these lab created substances, right. I'm kind of hesitant towards.
Yeah.
Mushrooms
I
don't give me that synthetic feeling.
no, it's so beautiful. And it
absolutely.
knows you like, well, it's again, it's not the drug, it's not the mushroom, it's the mushroom holds the door open and the brain goes, finally,
Right.
or the mind or the soul or whatever, the real you, the inner child, I guess, gets to reconnect with you. And that's why you get so gleeful and playful. And sometimes people laugh for 8 hours straight, or, sometimes you feel like a little kid,
Cry with joy.
I remember, just learning that I could reach out and grab a glass and I would gain sustenance from it was an absolute revelation. Things like that, or time
Just
dilation.
dipping your toes in the grass, man. It's just like,
You see kids do that.
It just feels like a feeling of like, wow, I've missed this. Like I've experienced the beauty of that moment before, and then I've lost it through like the daily bullshit that we live through all the fluoride and the predictive programming and the whole nine.
Yeah, and the controlled opposition too, I think, because we've been talking a lot about that, the same place that meditators try to get to, the same place that you can get to on psychedelics, near-death experiencers have talked about it, a lot of different types of experiences, that stillness, right? But you come back and then you go to like, Gaia and people like that are going off in 9 million directions with what your trips mean, and it's all your spirit guides and they're in the future and this and that. It's like, no, there's no time out there. Sorry, time's here. So
live in the now.
There's a lot of, again, it's that same theme, don't you think? It's like taking your power and putting it in some higher place, some higher person that can help us. You know what I mean? That predictive programming seems to be always seems like the root of it is always to suggest this is how it's always going to be, or this is how it's going to happen, and you have no choice. And I know that doesn't come right out and say it that way, but I think enough movies saying the same thing.
Right.
And if it's attractive and if it's hitting the right buttons on people, right?
It's repetitive subliminal messaging that will desensitize you towards the subject. So you don't ask questions about it, you just believe what you're told. And these ideas and events and symbols are programmed through movies, TV shows, books, radio, songs we listen to. Like it's everywhere. Whether it's like we were talking about earlier, showing futuristic technologies to get us used to facial recognition or retinal eye scans or any of that. It's just getting you desensitized and ready for what's coming, so you're not so holding back towards it.
Right. Which, I mean, maybe from people like us, like our perspective of kind of not buying into any of it and kind of seeing it for what it is, like that always confused me. Like, how are there that many people that don't see it, and it's just, I think you got to hit the right buttons with people. It's what they're interested in, I guess,
Right.
But shit, I had a question, but it's gone.
Well, what I love about the predictive programming that we see is that they kind of use it to keep their playbook and their options wide fucking open, man. You know how accepting we would be of a zombie apocalypse? Now, like, I don't think that that's going to happen. I think we're more likely to see like a technocratic authoritarian lockdown of our freedoms and our privacy. But like movies like I Am Legend, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. Like, it starts out as a miracle drug that turns people into fucking zombies. And it's one of the best films of the 2000s, in my opinion.
I think a lot of zombie media is to show us, oh, look, we got to trust these scientists that are trying to find a cure for it. So when they're coming out with a little jabby jab that's the cure, we'll be okay and be like, yes, we need this. This is what the answer is. I think a lot of zombie culture is to get us on board.
But like I said, on the other hand, a movie like I Am Legend shows that originally it was the cure to cancer, and then it made people into zombies. So like the idea of that happening isn't necessarily being programmed out of us. It's just getting us used to the reality that could be very possible.
Well, the thing is I would say, like, just using I Am Legend as an example here, I haven't seen it in a long time, but that being the miracle drug, right? The predictive programming is that the government is trying to cure cancer. That's the predictive programming in the film.
In my opinion, I think there's been many cures for cancer, and there's still
Right.
they suppress them to keep the money coming.
So that's the weird part. That's the question I was gonna ask. Like, what do you guys think of the angle of usually this tech, this, all these themes, they're all the bad guys. Why would they be programming us with that knowledge? Like, that's the weird part. Maybe it's a little revelation of the method or something. I don't know.
Yeah, we say that a lot. That's probably what it is too.
Well, I'm glad you do.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think revelation of the method means that it's all evil, because I also go way off the reservation and say that it really is all one, and that's why they're using the words unity, because they always mimic, they always copy, they create an artificial version of what is true and natural. So this oneness is real, and if that's the case, then that's just our ego, don't you think? That maybe they represent some kind of, I don't know, collective ego, maybe. Have you guys seen a documentary called Cymatics or Cymatica?
I've heard of it. I don't think I've seen it though. That's
Cymatica. Check that out, because it did what Zeitgeist did to you, Tyler, to me, like maybe 3 years ago. I saw Cymatica. And he really pushed that idea, and it kind of woke up a part of me that I hadn't thought about in a while, that like it could just be that this is all just one organism of some kind trying to figure itself out. And as above, so below, we have our individual egos that hold us back because they're scared of new things. Maybe the world is like that. And, like I said, the psychedelics kind of show you that conspiracy that you run on yourself, and you can heal and you can move forward.
Yeah.
Similar to us, we're finally looking into our real history. We're getting therapy. We're doing therapy, aren't we? Like collective therapy. And that's what the world needs, maybe.
Yeah,
just
maybe
a good hug and a cry.
Maybe the predictive programming is just, like you said, revelation of the method. But what it does is it allows them to show us what they're going to do to us. And then by us not refuting it or doing anything about it, it's us karmically giving them permission, to do what they're going to do.
Yes.
I think that there's a lot of truth to that. And I actually lost my train of thought, but that's kind of where
I do that all the time, man. I was embarrassed at first, and then everybody fucking does it. So, see, I just did it too. Whoa, let's not get into a loop. Have you ever gotten into oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, getting back into predictive programming, circle back in here.
Circle back.
How do you think The Simpsons predict so much stuff? Do you think they just made so much content that eventually things are just gonna fall into place? Or do you think there is a technology like the yellow book or whatever they call it, that they can sort of view future events?
I don't know, man. Like, maybe back to what I was saying before, like, and I've said it a couple times, I'm trying to get this to catch on. It's a nice phrase that the strings are probably being pulled from outside of the theater. It's not the guy on stage holding the puppets, because it's that typical piece of art where the strings are being pulled by, from him too. And it feels like this is all set up. Maybe that would explain channelers. Maybe they're all reading some script. I mean, they put Truman Show out there pretty viciously. I mean, shit, talk about, that's the mother lode of this century for predictive programming, I would say. I recently rewatched it with my wife, and every 5 minutes we were just looking at each other like, oh my God, this is horrifying.
Extremely symbolic. They really got us there.
Yeah.
Especially the man in the moon looking down at everybody like, it's a whole nother beast.
Yeah, man. I don't even know what to think of the moon anymore.
But like, back to The Simpsons, to say that, like, I feel
I didn't even answer that yet.
I don't even think that it can even be rationalized as a coincidence, because they're just so accurate with so many things. I've seen like a list of like 70.
I got a list right here.
He got
I got like
Ooh,
25.
nice.
a list of like 70 different things that they've accurately predicted correctly that were oddly specific.
The craziest
man.
one was Trump coming down the escalator and waving, and then Lisa becomes president after Trump, and she's wearing the purple suit with the pearls that Kamala is wearing on Inauguration Day. It's like, okay, how they do that one?
The guy with the
Yeah.
buffalo head on insurrection, like what?
Yeah.
Like that's incredibly
Richard Branson going to space. They predicted that 7 years ahead of time. Like it's nuts.
odd.
Yeah, it gets too specific. Like people always cite the 9/11 thing and go, "Oh, well, there's so many shows. They're the most famous buildings in the world at the time." And I'm like, no, there's too many specifics in those Simpsons episodes. So something's going on there. I don't know what. Because again, it's like you see it in the programming, but I don't know. I can't really give good examples of how I see it in nature necessarily right off the top. I got to start writing this crap down. But that would help.
I think needs to be done as a deep dive. What's his name? Matt Groening?
Groaning.
Matt
Yeah,
Groening.
Groening.
Someone needs to do a deep dive on that guy and find out who he's tied to.
I'm sure he
Because-
got money coming from somewhere.
I don't think it's money. I think it's whispers in his ear telling him, if I had to guess, like, put this into the show, and he may or may not know why, or he may be a
be.
talk about this a lot. He may be
That's
a
his
family
strings
member
from outside the
Right.
theater, man. Someone's probably putting that onto his agenda, and he just does it. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, and not to mention, how long has that show been fucking running for?
I don't
Like,
know, man.
those
It's been
don't-
running since I was
they
probably
don't run that
5 years
long.
old, and I'm
Like,
36.
constant
I was gonna
new
say it's been
seasons,
30
like-
something.
Yeah,
like,
at least
someone's
30.
allowing that show to continue to make episodes. I
Are
mean,
they any good?
I haven't
Tyler.
watched it.
No, you're good. It's a good show. I mean,
I
It's
haven't
still
watched a new episode of The Simpsons since I was like 12 years old.
it's no South Park, but it's a good show.
Yeah, I haven't watched South Park in like probably 5-10 years either. You know, I don't even know what they're up to. Are they still just topical? Are
Yeah,
they predictive programming? They're so rich.
Man,
they always like make fun of things that have recently happened. You know,
I
They're-
know.
Yeah,
nobody's off limits. That's what I love about that show.
Yeah, I really
think
feel like
Some of them tap on them, but
I like those two. I hope that they're cool. I hope that they're not. I mean, that's the thing though. Like maybe people that do have like a little bit more information, they don't necessarily have to be like putting this stuff in there to get us ready. Maybe some of it is warning us. Maybe some of it is, I don't know. You know, back to simulation. I had this idea once that like, you know how computers aren't as quick as us, so they take a little while to give us what we want. And it's like you mix like the idea of like manifestation and law of attraction and stuff with how the algorithm of the internet works and like searching something on Google.
Mhm.
And you know, it takes a little bit, but then you get your answers. And it's like the more we pay attention to and the more we give our focus to as a culture, as a collective, I guess I wonder if we could kind of gauge maybe what we are about at the time by seeing what they're giving us back. And if we're seeing all this negativity from them, is maybe that could just be a sign, you know, the as above, so below, inner, outer, maybe that's a sign for that we need to fix ourselves as a culture, because we have this mentality that we are maybe reflecting back, or we're having it reflected back at us from these simulation agents or something, these Mr. Smiths or something. They're just
AI.
anonymously, like autonomously giving whatever we pay attention to back to us. Conspiracy theories are huge everywhere now. Like, that's weird. It should be always suppressed, no matter how demanding people feel like it, you know, they want it or whatever. It's always been suppressed. Why is it everywhere now? All this stuff is the most topical shit. I don't know. It's weird,
Well,
man.
maybe that's just because you're only getting the conspiracy content you know,
From the algorithm, right?
You're
That's
not
what
on
I'm
the
asking
TikTok
for.
watching all the fucking propaganda that shit puts out, because
That's true.
I
That's
see
true.
some of these videos that are you know, people put on Facebook or Snapchat or TikTok or whatever the kids are using these days, you know.
Well, no. So wait, Mitch. Let me.
Dumbest things.
You're right. I totally get that. What I'm saying is all of those people are super hyper aware of conspiracy theorists and what conspiracy theorists are interested in and what new bullshit conspiracy theorists are running wild with now. It is so topical.
Because they try to make us look crazy. The
it
media
just means there's more of us.
See what these crazy people are getting into nowadays?
And the blue check marks are incentivized to do so.
Yeah.
Absolutely, dude. It just is a sign that there's way more of us than there ever used to be.
Yeah, for sure.
Because they have to pay attention to it, maybe. Or this other weird simulation idea, and it's just an algorithm feeding it right back to us, and they are machines, and we are in a simulation. I don't know.
Yeah, we're all plugged into the matrix, just in pods, naked bodies.
Yeah.
None of this is real. But
yeah, man, if you want to see the latest, for all the listeners out there, if you want to see the latest predictive programming, just go and watch the top 10 trending on Netflix, dude. It's always fucking something. Have you looked into Squid Game?
Squid Game?
That's like
it's the number one
newest
trending
thing on Netflix.
I watched the whole thing. It was an amazing series. There's only one season now.
What is it?
It doesn't tell you until the end. The entire premise of the show is that it takes debt slaves. It builds like this massive community of people who have debts that they can't repay, and they're like just a victim of the system, and then it gives them a chance to redeem themselves, to where they basically
these like games.
volunteer, and they sign a contract saying, I agree to play these games, but they have no idea what these games are. And then they go to this giant, looks like a multi-trillion-dollar facility where everybody that works at this facility is anonymous, they're masked, and then there's one head honcho who runs it, and it's basically like the Hunger Games, but there's like 500 people in it. And then the entire premise is that the wealthy of these in this series, it's Korea. The elite of Korea come and they watch these games take place and they bet on it. And it's just like the programming is that you're a debt slave, and that these people really do think of you that way.
Yeah, your life is not valuable to them, because if you lose the game, they kill you. Like
you die.
One of them was like red light, green light, and you could run forward, but if the red light came on and you're still running, a fucking gun shot you and you're dead.
Yeah, you get sniped.
You know?
And then it shows you in the last like 3 episodes that it's just like the wealthiest of the wealthy come and they watch you from a giant window that you can't see into, but they can see out of. And the way that they would talk about the contestants and everything, it was just like, it's like the way that we would imagine the billionaires thinking of us.
This is great. This is bringing lots of other predictive programming examples to mind, like Running Man. Have you seen or read that? That was a Stephen King short story, and it's all, it's all about a game show that's about, murderers chasing down these fleeing runners. They always put that out there. They definitely do. Oh, and I think, I don't know if is that the future they're trying to tell us that we're headed for? Where are they trying to say that they just love seeing misery? Because that's another kind of, I hate to get this dark, but it's kind of towards that Loosh idea, to see us. I don't know.
I just
pretty rough.
Feel like it's to make people feel not valuable. Like you're just some sack of meat that we can off at any time. You're not important.
Right.
When we all really are important. It's all about camaraderie.
And Andy, back to the idea of how you said how it's weird how they always portray themselves as the bad guys in these films.
Yeah.
Like in Squid Game, there was a guy who infiltrated the game, spoiler alert, and he dressed as one of the officers who oversee the games and is masked and walks around with a gun and, upholds the integrity of the games. But really he was infiltrating because his brother was a part of the games in a previous time. And it shows him going in there and shooting some of these elite viewers, people who are just watching the games in the head and stuff like that. And I think that they do that because they need to give the people like us who are watching a feeling of hope, you know, otherwise we wouldn't tune in to be programmed. Because if things like that didn't happen and it was just all gloom and doom, and there really was no feeling of like, oh man, you know, the good guys might win, then why would we ever tune into the programming to begin with, whether or not we knew it was programming?
It's a hero.
That's fair.
Yeah, it's a hero's journey.
It is.
Yeah.
In that case, the Matrix really does still bother me with the ending. Then the fact that the bad guys do win. I mean, maybe that was just, maybe everybody just took it as an art piece. Like, ooh, the good guys didn't win.
Yeah. You see the fourth one's
coming out on Christmas, man.
Yeah, and I'm gonna see the shit out of it, even though it's
programming. Watch the trailer to that, dude.
I have.
It's coming out on 12/21/21.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Of course. But in the first seconds of that trailer, Neo is shaking hands with a lady. I forget her name, but they do the Freemasonic handshake where they grab the Oracle. They grab the second knuckle with the thumb in each of their hands. Camera zooms in so that you can see it. It's like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah, did you see that HBO show that came out a while ago? I think it was with the dude that played Ragnar Lothbrok from the Vikings show. It was called Raised by Wolves.
No, I haven't.
Ooh, I've heard of it.
So the premise is about, you know, an AI raising a child or children, because I can't remember exactly. It's like this technocratic evil overlord system, but the humans of it are all gone. It's all the AI now, and they are the only ones responsible enough to raise children. But there's, of course, the rebel force, and there's us, and oddly enough, the rebel force has a lot of the Freemasonic symbolism on them. So maybe that tide of them being portrayed as the bad guys and all that, maybe it's starting to turn over now that they kind of feel like they got us in their pockets, you know, because there's a lot of Freemasonry in that show. They are clearly a group of Freemasonic people. It's unbelievable. I would check that one out big time. But that whole premise, man, the Terminator, man, I saw Terminator 2 when I was 7. Maybe I was a little too young. Maybe that explains a lot. But, you know, they've been doing it forever. They've been talking about this friggin' tech future, man. It's weird.
And, you know, before we wrap up, because we're getting close to our hour mark, for our listeners and your listeners, the best example of predictive programming that I have to offer is, it's a cheesy CW show. But if you've never heard of or seen the show, The 100, you must watch it. It's to give you a 20-second quick wrap up of what this show entails. It's a post-apocalyptic future where humans escape the nuclear war to go to space to keep the human race alive. They send a prison section, like the ragtag criminals, down to Earth to repopulate. And what they find down there is fucking crazy. You know, there's civilizations of post-nuclear people living down there, and then the whole premise of the show is to transcend what humans are now. And they find this ancient AI that
Allie.
And only a certain bloodline can use the AI to transcend, and it's so much blood sacrifice. It's fucking bananas, man.
Dude, you just gave me chills, because I totally forgot about that show entirely, man. And
it wasn't done by the CW. It could have been the best show ever fucking made, dude.
Yeah, it was I thought a lot of the acting was very good. And then you got a few seasons in.
I didn't like Clark, the main girl.
I liked her in the beginning.
Did not like Clark.
There was a lot of easy monologue-y, but that's just network television, you know?
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like it got worse as it went on. Like originally it felt like because it's what's cool about that opportunity for at least those actors, I guess, is that they were kind of playing lost children in the beginning when they're on the planet. And so to have that for the beginning of the show is great, because they're all working themselves into their characters. So there was a lot of raw acting on that first season, and I thought that show was pretty damn good that first couple seasons. Then when that theme really started to gear up and get into the AI and all that, the acting just fell off the table. It just wasn't there anymore. But what did we call, or what did the natives or the people that stayed on Earth, or were left behind. What did they call the people that came from the spaceships?
The sky people or something,
Sky
right?
people.
Sky something. It was a cool word.
Sky tribe or something. Yeah.
I forget what it was.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Very creative, but yeah, it sounds a lot like the shiny ones, the Anunnaki, those
Right.
that descended from heaven. And that's predictive programming, because again, they're doing that alien shit, the ancient alien stuff, where, oh yeah, they're telling us. It's when I was a kid, I saw these movies thinking, wow, directors are like secretly giving us all the cool information that maybe the government's trying to keep from us. They're not run, Hollywood's not run by the government or anything. Naivete, it just, I didn't realize back then, but my God, it's so obvious now,
And at the end of the show, what do? They flee a dying planet and they live on another planet. And it just seems like that's a theme.
Dude, I haven't got there yet. Fuck.
Yeah, I just stopped watching because I thought the acting got so shitty.
Yeah, it did. It was so
And
bad.
now looking back at some of the finer points that were put into the show, I kind of wonder, like, oh, there's more of that, many agendas in that show. But I'll have to go back and watch that a little bit. Have you guys seen The Expanse?
No, never heard of it.
So it's like, I think it's a Canadian show, and it was on the Sci-Fi Channel, where shows go to die forever, especially successful ones. There's a bunch of shows that have, they start out on the Sci-Fi show. Tons of people are loving it, but Sci-Fi refuses to fund it and they'll just cancel it. The Expanse, Amazon saved The Expanse when it was going to die after 2 seasons. What's that?
I don't watch Amazon shows very much either, but
yeah, I don't either. But just what I'm saying is, it's interesting who decided to save this incredible show about space. It is Game of Thrones in outer space, and it is like the near future. We're talking like 150 years from now, maybe less, where you have people called belters. They live out near the asteroid belt on space stations. They never really get to breathe real air. They never get true sunlight from a planet ecosystem or anything like that. And then you've got the Martians, and then you've got the Earth, the people on Earth, and they hate each other. It's war. And there's just a lot of predictive programming in there, and a lot of interesting themes that we're very familiar with. So check that out. Definitely go watch that total predictive programming show.
It's like every single show you can watch is predictive programming, improv.
Yeah. Dude,
it's hard
shout
to
out
find one that there's not,
Shout out to Kyle, Conspiracy Kyle. He and I have been like saying hashtag rewatch everything, because it's just, it gives you more fuel for the fire. It gets you more, it's just like everything else. Repetition changes those neurons into new patterns, right? You learn this stuff, you see it faster. You get used to this kind of shit, right?
Right.
And then next thing you know, you'll be like me, where your girlfriend can't even watch fucking movies with you because you ruin them for her.
I'm the same way, man. She hates
She gets
it.
she gets so mad at me. She's like, "You just ruin everything for me." I'm sorry.
They got to have their interest in it eventually, Like my wife was the same way. She's like, but now she's seeing all of it and pointing shit out to me, and I'm like, no.
That's a beautiful thing, though, man.
Yeah.
If you can get her to that point, then you got a real one with you.
I'm blessed. I'm very lucky in that. Yeah. So it's been awesome talking to you guys. Good to get to know you.
It's been great, man. Do you want to tell our listeners where they can find your stuff, and then we'll do the same?
Same places you can find these guys' shows. All the traditional social media. I'm at the Deep Share. The Deep Share podcast is over on Instagram. I got a site up and running, but I'm not doing much with it right now, but I will be eventually. It's just thedeepshare.com. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Write into me if you want. Contact at thedeepshare.com.
There you go,
and
people.
Please. And, like I said, we're probably on all the same places, but let my listeners know too where they can find you.
Well, our Instagram got booted off because of some stuff, but we're still on Twitter. Got my personal Twitter at Mitchell Vukic. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, anywhere you listen to podcasts, But our link tree is /DTRH pod, POD. And that has all our links there.
My personal Twitter is at Tyler_Saint21. Saint as in SAINT.
He's never on it. Don't follow him. Follow me.
I'll retweet some quality stuff, man. It's just about
There you
getting
go.
information out of the people. So
There you go.
Yeah, it's not quantity, it's quality, right?
that's fair.
All right,
That's what
guys.
people that don't put out a lot of content. That's what.
Well, yeah, no, man, it was a good time, Andy. We appreciate
Oh
it.
yeah, man, and just more concrete proof that it's good to be a part of the joint authority on conspiracy theories.
Yes.
So I'll talk to you guys soon, okay?
All right.
Stay in touch.
Thanks, Andy. Much love.
Hell yeah. Peace.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Deep Share Podcast. If you want to hear more, then hit that subscribe button. Follow me on all the social places. And remember, think for yourself, but don't always believe what you think. Till next time.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, that's hysteria. Enough, I get the point.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature. And you will atone.
What do we know? What do we know? If I know what we know, then I can tell you what we know, and if someone else knows, okay? I mean...